To the attention of the excellent Mr. Judges of Turn of the Court of Instruction No. 16 of Valencia during the year 2011. Don Antonio Ferrer Gutierrez, Don José Manuel Mejía Carmona, Miss María Jesús Farinos Lacomba. Honorable ladies and gentlemen, I am Laura Hernandez, one of the two daughters of Don Oscar Hernandez of Cuban nationality, sentenced to 20 years in prison in Procedure Rollo 63, 2010, dated March 8, 2011, by the 4th Section of the Provincial Court of Valencia. Your Honors, I am writing to you to point out that the documents of conviction that presume the guilt of our father are nonsense statements of the alleged victims, statements that have allegedly been misrepresented by the most excellent prosecutor, Rosa Giralt, to influence your decision and achieve an exemplary sentence. I attach irrefutable audio, video, and text evidence that corroborates our demand. Dear Honors, it is true that the victim's statement is sufficient to enervate the constitutional privilege of the presumption of innocence as long as it meets certain conditions, such as that the victim's statement has full credibility, that the testimony is credible, persistent, and prolonged in time, and that the existence of peripheral tests such as DNA, injuries, etc. that proves his statement. Your Honors, in this case it can be considered that the testimonies presented and evacuated during the process don't provide sufficient consistency to make them binding on the judgment condemning the present case. The oral hearing was enlightening enough in this regard. For example, one of the victims, Rebecca Ibanez. Rebecca complained in the Civil Guard Command on January 8, 2010, that her father invited her to make love. She refuses and throws him out of his house without any criminal act. Here attached his complaint. Also in the hearing, Rebecca not only denied the alleged assault, she also answered all the questions of the prosecutor with long pauses and very short words. I do not remember, and I did not have an intimate relationship with the accused. You can see next the digital copy of the oral hearing.
¿Usted realizó el acto sexual con el acusado?
Yo no.
She has acknowledged the relationships were consented and that she knew exactly what she was doing. You can listen to it next.
Cuarta hoja en el apartado C, al final de todo,
Vale.
hay una frase
Sí.
muy simple que ella me la ha subrayado, mi abogado me la ha subrayado en amarillo fosforito, que pone libremente al final. Rebeca Ibáñez Escalada
Sí.
lo hace, participa libremente.
Ah, vale,
Pone.
vale.
¿Vale? Ahí donde pone participa libremente, en el apartado T que pone Rebeca Ibáñez Escalada, que soy yo,
Sí.
¿vale? Él tiene que mandar una carta escrita al Supremo diciendo que aquí está muy claro, o sea, diciendo que está clarísimo que fue libremente.
Pues claro,
y
que no hubo
señora
ninguna...
fiscal, claro, la señora fiscal, doña Rosa Giralt, que está confundida, que aquí fue libremente, que por lo menos lo de los 7 años de Rebeca, que se lo quiten porque fue libremente. Tiene que hacer un escrito al Supremo.
Vale.
Porque si le hace un escrito a la fiscal no le va a valer de nada, ¿eh?
No, ellos están ya preparando el escrito para el Supremo, pero claro, revisando todo.
Pues, lo que me ha dicho, el único consejo que me ha dado es que se coja esa frase y que intente quitarle los 7 años míos. Porque realmente, parte por él y parte por mí, pone claramente libremente. Si ella te ha querido poner 7 años por mí, así porque le da la gana a ella. Así me lo ha dicho.
Madre mía.
Also, Rebecca declares in the Civil Guard Command on January 8, 2010, that about a month ago her best friend Erica, another of the victims, her boyfriend, and our father, had dinner at his house. That means on December 7th of the previous year. Your Honors, in your sentence-proven facts, the date of the dinner and the facts attributed are different, specifically for a day not determined at the beginning of January, and it is not different because it was misspelled. Your Honors, I think it is important that you know the reason why the prosecution and the victim changed the date of the events that happened at the beginning of January. They changed the date right after our father announced to Rebecca and the prosecution that he would present a copy of messages and calls as irrefutable evidence of his innocence. These messages and calls show that Rebecca and my father maintained a relationship between the day they had dinner until January 1st, 2010, just after my father didn't attend the New Year's Eve dinner party. This is the reason why Rebecca Ibáñez and the prosecutor's office plan to alter the documents belonging to the court, changing the date of the events to the beginning of January. As well, Rebecca confessed that she denounced my father because her friend Erica asked her to do it, and she would do anything for her friends. audio attachment and transcript of her confession.
No la conozco, Yo no la... Ah, bueno, yo no la conozco, ella no la conozco personalmente,
vale, pues
pero...
digo, yo he hablado con ella ayer y ella va por todas. Ella va a pedirte a ti 6.000, bueno, a Oscar le va a pedir 6.000 pavos. Yo he leído la sentencia de Oscar y luego ella me ha dado la suya. Y la sentencia de ella es mucho más dinero. La de Oscar no es igual que la de ella.
Sí,
Por si no lo sabes, es verdad eso, Yo la he leído.
sí.
¿Me has oído?
Sí,
Entonces,
sí.
ella va por el dinero.
Claro que va por el dinero, pero eso está claro desde el principio.
Ella me ha dicho que consiga tu teléfono y que se lo dé a ella. Yo no tengo el teléfono, pero no se lo voy a dar a ella.
No, dile que ya yo no te he vuelto a llamar y...
Vale, pues ya está, pues eso es lo que le voy a decir, que yo no sé nada de ti, que yo nunca te he visto y que ya está. Y se acaba la situación. Yo lo mío lo voy a intentar quitar y lo de ella que cada uno se estalle con lo suyo. Ella te va a meter, si tú le llamas a ella va a llamar desde la Guardia Civil o desde la policía o desde el juzgado y le va a meter más años a Oscar.
No,
Te estoy diciendo la verdad.
No, a ver, yo no quiero nada de eso.
Aquí.
Yo no quiero nada de eso. Yo pensaba que era una persona con que igual en un determinado momento se podía hablar, igual que hemos hablado contigo.
No, ella está rebotada, Ella está rebotada.
No, pero...
No, ella va por todas, va por 10.000 euros,
10.000 euros.
10.000 euros de indicación. Sí.
Pero ya
Y
no
aparte,
fue bastante todo lo que robó en la casa. Todo lo que
no,
se
yo
llevó.
la llamé a ella y le dije que ella había robado. Ella me dice que eso es mentira. Bueno, es lo que dice a mí. Que eso es mentira. Y que aparte de eso, que él sí que es verdad que todo lo que pone ahí, que él ha violado. Yo te voy a decir una cosa. ¿Cómo te llamas?
Carolina.
Carolina, yo soy Rebeca. Bueno, lo sabe ya.
Sí.
Carolina, ella me ha dicho a mí. Ella, ¿sabes cómo me convenció a mí?
Sí.
Vale, ella vino a mí el día de Año Nuevo y me dijo que el día de Nochevieja Oscar la había intentado violar. Llorando. Y yo por una amiga doy la vida. O sea, yo tengo una amiga o un amigo o mi pareja y aunque no me lo crea, doy la vida, voy a por todas. No sé si tú eres igual, pero yo soy igual.
Yeah.
Yo soy así. ¿Sabes?
Sí.
Y ella me dijo eso y yo di la vida por ella. Y por eso dije eso.
Tú te lo creíste, vamos, como te lo planteo y todo eso, pues te lo creíste.
Vale, yo y tú somos mejores amigas, ¿vale? Somos hermanas, ¿no?
Sí.
Vale, y tú vienes a mí y me dices que un tío te ha violado.
Sí.
Que te intente defender.
Sí.
Vale, y tú como mejor amiga, ¿qué haces?
Regarding what I just mentioned, we consider the legality that must be the same in all the actions of the parties, such as probity and good faith. Changing the date of facts is an illicit strategy, and I think it is important to highlight this inconsistency and its consequences for the following reasons. First, changing the date of the facts is as illegal as changing the fingerprints of an innocent person to incriminate him or her with crime. Second, the prosecution, besides changing the date of the events for the beginning of January, didn't deliberately define the exact date and time in order to obstruct the process and have a possible alibi.
Esto ocurrió, si no recuerdo mal, Rebeca, esto fue en el mes de enero de 2010, que es a principios de enero de 2010. Principios de enero de 2010 esta mujer...
Considering this, let's define the institution of an alibi. Evidence presented by a defendant in defense of his innocence with which he or she shows that at the time when a crime was committed, he or she was in another place. In my opinion, not defining the date and time of the incident is a fraudulent strategy and full of bad faith. Third, another consequence of changing the date is that the judgment enters into contradiction when it states in Section C that at the beginning of January, Erica, her boyfriend, and my father had dinner at Rebecca's house. And a paragraph below that one in Proven Facts in the Section C states that, on the morning of January 1st, 2010, at one point the defendant rushed towards Erica Mileni Sulbaran, touching her and rubbing her everywhere. Your Honors, according to the ruling, Erica was attacked by my father on January 1st. That means that Erica, after being sexually assaulted, allegedly went for dinner with my father to dinner at her best friend Rebecca's house later that night. Your Honors, what you just heard is considered as an irrefutable fact, since it is not often seen that a girl after suffering a sexual attack eats dinner with her attacker at her best friend's house, let alone leave her alone, her friend alone with this attacker. Your Honors, when was Rebecca attacked? Beginning of December according to her initial complaint? Or when she was in a relationship with my father? Or at the beginning of January according to the prosecutor after breaking up? Changing the date of the facts is as unlawful as exchanging a DNA test, since it would be distorting the only evidence you have against my father, the declaration. I think it's important that you also know why Mrs. Giralt changed the statement of the victim, and why she changed the charges of assault without penetration to rape with penetration when this crime wasn't even reported. Your Honors, remember that Rebecca's initial complaint to the police says, "My father invited her, she refused and threw him out of her house." I attach her complaint. My father contradicts Rebecca and declares that they maintained a sexual relationship because they were a couple. Automatically, the public prosecutor imputes my father with the charges of rape because, according to the prosecutor, my father admits that he maintained relations with the victim, but she denies it because she doesn't remember it.
Es que te digo lo que me ha dicho él. Él me ha dicho que recurráis la frase que te pongo ahí, que yo lo hice.
Sí, eso se va a hacer, por supuesto, pero
y que recurráis eso y que os ciñéis en eso. Y que si tenéis que ir en contra de alguien, vayáis en contra de la fiscal diciendo que ella no se ha dado cuenta de lo que yo dije.
Yeah.
Porque bien se dice ahí bien claro que yo lo hice porque quise. Que sabes, que yo sabía en todo momento lo que pasaba, que yo no iba y que yo no estaba inconsciente. Porque
Your Honors, with all the respect you deserve, but it seems to me as an unworthy, unfair, and inhuman behavior that presumably Prosecutor Rosa Giralt turns my father's honesty into a big lie in addition to changing the date of the incidents. Your Honors, I believe that if you had had this information before giving your judgment, your decision would have been different. Your Honors, in my opinion, Rebecca Ibanez's statement should have been excluded as proof of responsibility from the moment the date of the facts was manipulated because it lacks credibility and is inconsistent over time and doesn't meet the requirements of solemnity to preside over his presumption of innocence. 2. Dear Honors, another of the victims, Jacqueline del Pilar, currently serving a prison sentence in Picassent for extortion. This young lady in her initial statement denounced fellatio with penetration. In the hearing during her statement, forgot the script of her story and told a completely different version from her initial complaint to the point that she forgot to narrate the alleged aggression. She limits herself to narrating that my father proposed her with the question of making love with him. She gets angry, gets stressed, and goes home. You can listen to it next. The prosecutor, Rosa Giralt, in an attempt to amend such forgetfulness, had to ask her, "And then when were you attacked?" Her answer was, "That was another day." She didn't specify precisely the assumptions made with the particularities and details that any person in their own circumstances would be able to relate, a fact that leads to think that the complaint is false.
Y entonces dígame una cosa, ¿usted qué hizo?
No, yo le dije que no. Yo le dije, no, padrino, no. Ya él se fajó, se enojó, yo me vestí, me fui.
But also in her story's rectification, she forgot again to mention the fellatio, didn't know how to amend such forgetfulness for the second time. She declared that it was only penetration without fellatio, contradicting herself only once again. Her statement is also recorded. Your Honors, you have experience in discussing these cases, and you know better than I do that a true sexual assault victim doesn't confuse her story or tell different versions of it. In her trial, there is a feeling that leads her to declare only one story version. 3. The victims confess that the complaint is false. Your Honors, 2 of the victims confessed to a witness that the complaint is false. They even went to withdraw the complaint and the judicial police didn't allow it. It is recorded in the digital copy of the trial.
Sí que es cierto que en un momento contactó usted telefónicamente con ellas, interesándose
Sí.
por el asunto. ¿Qué fue lo que le comentaron?
Pues yo les comenté que les llamaba en relación a lo que había pasado con Óscar Giraldo. Y bueno, una de ellas, la primera llamada, ella estaba nerviosísima. Me dijo que ella no tenía ni idea, que ella pensaba que Óscar estaba en la cárcel, que no iba a haber ningún juicio, que Erika la había enrollado en todo, o sea, es que era todo como muy alterado, que no sabía que Óscar estaba en la calle, pero cómo que hay un juicio por medio, que yo no quiero saber nada de esto, que yo no sabía que se iba a llegar a este punto, echaba la culpa de todo a Erika, que yo no conozco a ninguna de las chicas. Y fue directa a la comisaría. Y en la puerta de la comisaría, antes de entrar, me llamó por teléfono para pedirme el nombre, apellidos y NIE de Óscar para retirar la demanda.
¿Recuerda quién fue esa persona? ¿Si fue doña Jacqueline o doña Rebeca?
Jacqueline, pues que me también hablé con Rebeca.
¿Y qué le comentó doña Rebeca?
Doña Rebeca me dijo que no tenía... era una mujer mucho más templada y me dijo que ella no quería saber nada, que no quería ningún problema y que la relación que había tenido con Óscar era una relación normal, ni buena ni mala, como de un conocido. Es lo que me dijo.
Con lo cual, ambas, tanto doña Jacqueline como doña doña Rebeca, le manifestaron que la inductora de todo era doña Erika.
Sí.
Your testimony is an important evidence that proved my innocence, but it was not valued or taken into account, nor even mentioned in your sentence. 4. Convicted without scientific evidence or police investigation. Your Honor, it might seem unthinkable, but in this case, no expert or police investigation was carried out. The coordination protocol against sexual abuse was not activated to obtain DNA evidence, nor was a psychological or forensic examination of the victims requested. To summarize, you have condemned him directly without the minimum judicial investigation on the veracity of the statements of the victims. Your Honors, to sum up, no offense intended, it's clear that you have constructed your version of proven facts by copying and pasting from the indictment, and you have sentenced an innocent man to 20 years in prison based only on statements allegedly adulterated given by the fiscal ministry. Your Honors, I think you should also know that our father is an honest person who has cared for and raised his daughters through his work as a mechanical engineer. He has never had problems with justice, nor is he capable of committing the crimes that are attributed to him. As you can imagine, we have exhausted all the existing resources, and we only have left to persuade you within the framework of your legal powers to realize the seriousness of his situation in order to investigate the reason why the date of the imputed facts were changed, why he has been convicted of a crime of rape with penetration when he is not even denounced, and if possible, order the nullity of his sentence and repeat the trial. In case your answer is favorable to my request and you need some other information, you can contact his lawyer, Mr. Miguel Olmedo Cardenete. You can also visit our website, www.presumpcionculpable.es. Sincerely, Laura Hernandez.